What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ink, Drink, Think, Episode 7, Part 1. In honor of spooky pumpkin season, we're digging into the pulp. We're doing some pulp characters tonight. I am your host, Michael Pickard, joined always by my wonderfully talented co-hosts and friends, Johnny Wise. Johnny, you are up, my friend.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Johnny. So for pulp characters, I'm going to be doing a piece on the shadow. Pretty classic one, pretty much the one, right? And then I started penciling the shadow and got two into it, so it's pretty close to done. So then I've got another character ready to go that I'm a little further back on, that I was reading up on, called the Crimson Clown, who maybe got like 3 issues in Pulp magazine. He's just a guy, a clown with a gun, basically. There's not really much else to his backstory. We've been talking about him a little bit. I think everyone on the show is a big fan of the Crimson Clown, right? Yeah, we all love the Crimson Clown.
We are
not
now.
at all. No.
yeah. So he's horrible, completely disgusting. So I'm going to be drawing him once I finish the shadow. So yeah, I'm raring to go, and I'm drinking San Miguel tonight.
Awesome, buddy.
Which I think is the thing I mostly have because it's cheap.
Well, I'm hoping that the shadow piece takes longer than you're anticipating, because I don't want you to break out the Crimson Clown. By God, do not break out the Crimson Clown.
I'm excited for the clown.
Bring out the clowns.
The clown's coming, guys. You can't stop it.
I don't like that. We're also joined by our fellow co-host, Nate Wells, who's taking a sip. So, Nate, take a second for yourself, but you are up.
I don't want the clown to appear. I just won't look at Johnny's screen for the rest of the episode, just in case. Tonight, I'm drawing a character called the Masked Rider that I know very, very little about. His alter ego is like Wayne something. The writer, I think, created him as a pretty blatant ripoff of the Lone Ranger, who I don't think at the first appearance of the Masked Rider had made the transition into pulp magazines yet. So they kind of beat him, or beat the Lone Ranger guys to it. I'm drawing a version that's not a direct ripoff visually of the Lone Ranger, because I feel like the most popular story is he's just the Lone Ranger, but he wears like a red shirt or like a different colored mask or something. I don't know. I didn't really want to draw that. But I was drawn to the Western characters because I'm a big fan of Westerns. And I found this guy called the Masked Rider, and one of the mascots for my university is named the Masked Rider. Wears all black, rolls out ahead of the football games, gets everybody all riled up. So now I'm thinking maybe the people, the Texas Tech founders, read some pulp magazines, some like B-list pulp magazines. So I'm a little concerned about that. But yeah, today I'm drinking a local Buzz from Four Corners Brewing in Dallas. It's really good beer. But yeah, I'm excited to get in this. I'm actually going to be finishing the pencils on the show and then getting into the inks. So we'll drawing a horse. So who knows?
And as we've been reiterating off camera, fuck horses.
Fuck horses, dude.
Don't fuck horses, but...
And of course, Teacher Todd himself, our final co-host, but last but not least, Mr. Wonderful himself, Todd Blackwood.
Aw, Mr. Wonderful. Hey guys, it's interesting because you guys all came up with all these heroes other than the Shadow that I'd never heard of before. And so, of course, I picked the Rocketeer, which is a much more recent character. So I feel like it was almost a little bit of a leap to insert him into pulp characters. But what else would he be? So yeah, I know it's kind of hard to see right now. So I'll show you what I've got done so far. Is that, and then I'm trying to work with this limited palette right now, so I'm trying to, instead of going for the actual colors of them, I'm just gonna see what I can do with this muted color palette that I've got going for myself. That's essentially it's mostly going to be reds and greens. So I'm adding like a little yellow in there too, and yeah, I might put a blimp or something in there as well, some cross lights. But there you go.
Yeah.
I love your layout with the clouds at the bottom and the smoke trailing off. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I wanted the smoke or the smoke and the clouds to really come pulling out of the cloud. But it's just like I'd have to make them a lot smaller to really get that effect. So I'm glad you noticed it.
Yeah, it looks great, man. Anyways, guys, I am Michael Pickard. As I said, rocking the Zorro stash because tonight I am going to be inking a Zorro piece that I penciled. And if I switch to my camera, you guys can check that out. So I drew Zorro riding in on Tornado, his horse.
Yeah,
That's looking good.
great.
Thanks, guys.
Nice.
The horse
well on the
looks
horse,
looks
though.
solid. Yeah.
Thank you. As we were talking about, I had a lot of reference imagery up while drawing this, as well as reference within comics of horses being drawn. So hopefully I can live up to the standard of professional comics in this one, but no guarantees because I'm pretty sure horses are a mix between extraterrestrials and demons, some kind of weird amalgamation of soulless beings, but we'll see how it goes.
Yup.
Awesome.
Anyways, guys, to start off this episode, we're clearly doing pulp characters, and Todd, you brought up the Rocketeer being a more recent character, but I think he absolutely counts in consideration of pulp. And this is kind of a question we could get into a little bit, but how would you guys define pulp then? Because in reality, pulp magazines were the precursor to comics. Yeah. Pulp magazines were like the precursor to comic books. And so a lot of these characters were pre-comic book literary figures. But like the Rocketeer, for example, was a comic book character. But there's something about the element and the vibe that he brings that is intrinsically pulp. How would you guys describe that if you could think about that?
Boy, I don't know.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
There is something about pulp characters. I mean, at the face of it, I would say like it was just there's like a feel of like pre-superhero, like superheroes basically. Like they're kind of they all have like masks and shit like that. Yeah, it's pre-superhero, but there is something about a lot of them, like the shadow and shit like that. There's like a noir aspect to it. A lot of them, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, Zorro isn't. Some of them differ from that a little bit, but a lot of them kind of are like prototype Batmans, kind of.
Yeah, I
Like,
think
there's
they
like
kind of
a
like
noir
tiptoe into the fantastic, whereas superheroes kind of dive all the way in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think the farther we get away from sort of like when pulp was in the 30s and 40s, that time period kind of becomes a little bit of it. It's like anything pre-30s, whereas it's like if anybody's like wearing a mask, it's pulp. You know, we talked about Django Unchained a little bit before we started filming, and that's obviously a very, I think, pulp-inspired Tarantino story.
Oh, totally.
Sort of like a love letter to that. And so, yeah, I really don't even know how to like put my finger on it. So I should stop talking.
I'm sure there's a definition.
I'm sure there is too.
Yeah.
I don't know it though.
It's very odd to describe because I think you touched upon, all of you, some really interesting points about it being pre-superhero, time period being pre-1930 essentially, because that's when the dawn of the superhero really occurred. And also delving into a little bit of the supernatural or the strange, I think is important. But at the same time, then you have to consider like pulp detective stories, which not all of them had characters like Dick Tracy or the Spirit, who had more fantastical elements, whether it be like an Apple Watch essentially, or any kind of like secret identity or anything. A lot of the times they're just detectives solving murder mysteries or cowboys stopping a bandit. It's a weird, nebulous concept, Pulp, in the way that so many various characters fit under this umbrella that traditionally wouldn't have anything in common. Like you wouldn't connect a detective with a sci-fi astronaut necessarily, but there's an element to it that's uniquely Pulp. Like you can look at Indiana Jones and the Rocketeer and go, oh, they're both Pulp.
Yeah. Right.
It's a weird one. I think it's one of those where you know it when you see it. It's tough to describe. But
I was going to say exactly that same thing, Johnny.
Yeah.
I know what it feels like, but I don't know how to articulate it.
Yeah.
But I would assume it's also a time period thing. I mean, other than the Rocketeer, is there any other characters that you can think of that you would consider pulp that were, say, created in like the 50s or 60s or 70s?
Well, if you want to go to the 90s, and I mean, he's clearly a love letter to them. I was going to say Lobster Johnson, but he's very clearly inspired by all of those figures.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah,
but Rocketeer is
more of like tributes are a totally different thing.
But Rocketeer is very intrinsically his own thing. He's not a tribute. He's not a reference. He's not a side character or a plot point. He's his own brand.
Yeah.
Well, but what I mean is he wasn't created during that time period, so I'm just trying to think of any other characters that fell into the realm of pulp that were created not as a tribute to pulp characters, but I can't think of any. I
mean, I guess Indiana Jones, but
maybe there are.
Like again, of course, Adventures. Yeah. That's a tough question.
That's what was that guy's name? He was based on King Solomon's mines.
Yeah. Arthur something, right?
Well, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Once it's happened,
something.
Once Pulp's happened and is in the past, you can't have like a new character that's pulpy that isn't inspired by it. You know,
right?
You can't. Yeah. You can't like create a new pulp character and it not be inspired by pulp.
Right.
Do you guys have a genre of pulp? Oh, sorry. What were you saying, Todd?
No, go for it.
Oh no, I was kind of segueing a little bit. So if you have a good point, we can continue from there.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm going to bring up The Shadow. I think The Shadow, I might be wrong about this, but I think The Shadow at one time was a major media thing that was bigger than Batman and Superman, like in terms of like relatively speaking, you know, at the time, The Shadow was the dominant force in like popular media. I think maybe people don't quite realize just how popular The Shadow was from like whenever it came out, 39 to like 52 or something. Like it was not. Nobody could touch it.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that. I just assumed like in comics, pulp or general magazine fare, Superman was about the biggest thing.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm talking about like the radio show for the most part. I could be wrong.
Oh, okay.
I forget. I'll go back and look at what it was that was I found that on. But I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, The Shadow was really, really popular.
Yeah, it's odd because he doesn't really exist anymore outside of comics.
Yeah, I think people can't figure out what to do. Although, I mean, I haven't read all the Dynamite stuff that they've tried to do or that they've been doing. Sorry, Dynamite. But I've heard...
You're blacklisted.
What's that?
You're blacklisted now on Dynamite.
What else is new? I mean, like he's one of those characters where like I feel like anything you do that's from the 30s or 40s and try to do in a retro way and can be really cool, but can also totally faceplant if you do it wrong. I think Indiana Jones was an anomaly in the sense that it made that stuff seem super cool, and you wouldn't want it any other way. But I could see a lot of people thinking, "Oh, why would I want to read a story that was old-fashioned?" Or I think there's got to be a great way to do it. But I don't know. It's also been a little bit of a head scratcher as to why the Shadow isn't more popular nowadays. But I think he's been replaced by Batman, like literally.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty big factor. I mean, they keep trying to do like pulp, like films of like pulp characters, and they just never work. They always bomb. There was the John Carter movie, right?
Oh, uh-huh.
Oh, yep.
Well, oh yeah, that was a heartbreaker. I
mean, when it came out, I had no idea who the fuck he was.
You never heard of John Carter?
I mean, I have now, but when that movie came out, I didn't know what it was. I think that was pretty much the same for a lot of people. There might have been a big reason for why it bombed.
John Carter was such a big influence on so much stuff. Like it was, a lot of science fiction and stuff started with John Carter. But part of the problem with John Carter was the fact they called it John Carter. It should have been called John Carter, Warlord of Mars, because that's what it was originally called. And Disney basically chickened out over the title, and so they couldn't figure out what to call it.
It's a cooler title.
Oh, it's way cooler. Yeah, but it's like I'm going to call if they'd called Star Wars John Smith. Nobody would have understood what it was and gone to see it. I would assume. Anyway.
Well, even more so because there's no character called John Smith in Star Wars. People would have been really confused.
That is definitely true. Yeah.
I went to see this John Smith movie. It was in the John Smith in sight.
That would
have been a pretty artsy movie.
Can you imagine that? Naming a property after a random person who's not in the property.
It would be incredible.
I'm going to make a science fiction movie and call it Bill Clinton.
Please do.
Do you guys have a genre of pulp that you particularly connect with? Zorro, for me, the weird Spanish California setting is something that's very unique to this character. There aren't a lot of fictional characters that exist in this landscape. Let alone within the superhero subgenre. So he's one that I find very particularly interesting and compelling. But are there any pulp genres, whether it's detective or sci-fi or romance, that you guys are particularly drawn to?
Well, is romance considered pulp?
There could be.
Yeah. How about James Bond? James Bond pulp?
Ooh, good question.
Because James Bond is the one I would point to as the answer if he counts as pulp, which I think you could argue either way in a sense.
Yeah, I think with it depends on what Bond you're referring to. Like maybe Connery or some of the earlier ones, I would definitely, or even the books for that matter. I would 100% say, yeah, there's definitely a pulp element to it. The fun espionage missions. But like Daniel Craig, I would not describe as pulp.
Well, how come? Because it's too modern?
Not that it's just too modern, but it's too self-serious, perhaps.
So you feel like pulp has to have a certain campy quality? Is that what you're getting at?
I think so. I think there might need to be some level of recognition within the expression of the story that it's fictional.
Yeah. That's interesting.
That's just me. That's not a concrete thing.
I would define it like I said with the with like it when you see it thing. If the character is on the cover and they're like holding a woman who looks frightened and they're holding like a little gun and then the lighting is real like black and white, like real noirish, I'm like, yep, that's definitely pop.
Yeah.
Which I can see with a lot of the old James Bonds, and I can't see Daniel Craig doing that.
What if I told you my dream wedding pictures were like that? Would my dream wedding pictures then be pulp?
Yes.
What?
That'll be the best wedding.
That'd be funny to show your kids someday. You know, we got attacked at the wedding, but I fought them off, and that's why you're here today, kid.
Always describing your wife as a dame.
Yes.
Yeah. Your mom passed out. I carried her while I shot them all.
Yeah, a lot of dames in Pulp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Femme fatales.
Dames, descriptions of legs. Legs that went miles. It's pretty much noir. I keep getting it confused with noir, I think. They're pretty, they go hand in hand a lot, don't they?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's an interesting, actually.
yeah, I'd say that's a pretty blurred border because you could have something that's very noir also be very
Yeah.
pulpy.
Yeah.
Like the Spirit, I would say, is both noir and pulp.
Yeah, Sin City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the realm of comics.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then again, Zorro, not at all. It's really weird, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because like I had mentioned Buck Rogers earlier, and there's nothing like that in Buck Rogers, but that's it's interesting because pulp is not a genre. Pulp is a vehicle in which you can tell genre stories regardless of genre, and so maybe that's why it's so hard to kind of peg down what pulp is.
Could be, yeah.
Because we're all drawing pretty different characters here on our pulp episode.
Yeah, and it can't just be described as like pre-superhero superheroes because the Rocketeer is from the 80s. He's a modern character.
Yeah. And as similar as the Shadow is, or Batman is to the Shadow, I don't think Batman has any similarities to any of the other characters where you guys are drawing.
Except maybe Zorro.
Yeah, Zorro and the Shadow.
Crimson Clown.
Crimson Clown, yeah.
Batman would have a huge problem with the Crimson Clown.
Yeah.
Joker.
Punch me. I just don't like it. Yeah. You're a clown. Clowns are bad.
It's a valid reason, to be fair.
Listen, after John Wayne Gacy, I will never trust a clown.
Have a lot of run-ins with John Wayne Gacy.
Listen, you get tricked once, you don't fall for it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what a lot of people said about John Wayne Gacy, is that he tricked people. He was a real trickster.
That one.
Oh, you John Wayne Gacy, you've tricked me again.
It's getting dark.
Yeah. Shame on John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, it's like Star Wars, you know. The light rises to meet the dark. We're talking about pulp, which is very fun and lighthearted. We have to have some kind of equilibrium there. Bringing up real world serial killers.
Yeah.
We'll see.
No,
if this
you're
gets
right.
cut or
I
not.
agree.
I was gonna say, do you guys have a favorite pulp character? That might not necessarily be the one you're drawing, but one that you very much appreciate or like the storytelling of.
I'm with you, Mike.
The Shadow.
Oh, the Shadow for you? Because Zorro is my guy for sure. I used to love Zorro growing up.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Zorro's great.
I don't know about you guys, but there was that Antonio Banderas movie. That did it for me. That was the first movie I ever went to see.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That
it was my
director is
shit.
fantastic. Yeah.
What a great first movie. That's incredible
I know,
to
I
see in
loved it.
theater.
Yeah.
I got you beat, Johnny. The first movie that I saw in the theater was the original Star Wars. They re-released it. And
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Yeah.
My first cinematic experience was Star Wars.
Apparently
that's
mine
pretty
was Iron Giant, but I can't confirm
Well,
that.
damn, man. That's pretty good, too.
Yeah, I think we all got a couple of good ones.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I don't know whether I'm misremembering. Mine was either Zorro or Batman and Robin. So it really swings either way there.
Ooh.
See, I would be
critical
proud if it
darlings.
was Batman and Robin. I used to watch
do
that
remember
movie all the time when I was a kid.
Oh my god, I watched it over and over and over. It was my favorite movie as a kid. That's why I'm
Oh,
getting it
yeah.
kind of confused, because it was my all-time favorite movie.
Are Batman and Robin / Batman Forever
Wow.
and Batman 66 Pulp in your mind?
No.
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 Camp.
Camp.
Camp,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if that's...
Yeah.
No, that brings up an interesting segue into this whole conversation, because is camp its own thing that can't have any... is it like the same thing with noir and pulp, where it kind of like blurs itself a little bit? Like, can you have both? Is camp an intrinsic element of pulp? It's a loaded question.
I've never
Right, yeah. I would say
Yeah.
the fundamental thing about camp is the comedy of it, the parody. Whereas, like, there's some noir and pulp stories. I mean, even just saying noir, like they're very, very not necessarily grounded, but very serious, dramatic, intense stories. I don't know that I would necessarily put camp in sort of like a subgenre of pulp. You could probably do a camp pulp thing. There's probably examples of campy pulp stories. I can't think of any, but
Yeah, I don't know if I would describe a lot of pulp as camp necessarily. I mean, silly for sure. But again, only like a lot of it only now
Sure,
that
yeah.
we look back on them. No, now only in hindsight.
Well, the Batman TV show was very self-aware camp,
Yeah.
which is funny though, because I had no idea that show was a comedy when I was a kid. I took it so seriously.
Oh, same. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It wasn't until I was a teenager and I saw it, because it was already in reruns when I saw it the first time when I was like probably 3 or 4. But I remember watching it as a teenager, getting so excited, and then was like, "Wait, what is this? Are they making jokes?" And I thought, "Oh no."
Oh,
It was
no.
like discovering that Santa Claus wasn't real.
Yeah, I think we probably all. I
It was a
think
little bit of a. I had to
There's-
quietly myself.
there's like a level of like maturity if you're a fan of Batman, where like as a kid, everyone really likes that show on a very sincere level, and then you get to be
Mhm.
like a teenager and you watch it and you're like, this is terrible, and then you get a bit older again and then you watch it again and you're like, this is fucking hilarious. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's just that you
I think the
understand
people
that it's a
complain
comedy.
about it. Yeah. I think the people who complain about it need to remember that there's a bunch of kids watching it. I think no matter if that show, people think that show was terrible, it's like, I think it still created a legion of Batman fans.
I think it's great. I think it's really funny.
Oh, yeah. It's super funny. But it's also beautiful. I mean, that was a beautiful looking show.
Yeah. I really think that Mazzucchelli's Batman was heavily inspired by Adam West's Batman. I still think that.
Oh, the costume for sure.
It seems
Yeah.
that way, yeah. Yeah.
The cloth element, the way it hangs on his body, definitely.
Yeah, like you could almost just
Yeah.
paint over, like take a still from the show, like draw over it with ink, give him white eyes, and you've basically got Mazzucchelli's Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that really great drawing in the back of like the collected edition of Batman Year One, at least the one that I have, as I'm sure a lot of the viewers have, where he does like a really great sort of black and white dramatic drawing of Adam West Batman, and
Yeah.
it's one of the best drawings in the book, I think, and it's not even part of the story.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Well, you mean the one where the bat signal's behind him? And he's sort of
Maybe.
looking out? Or you're talking about that literal... Wait, are you talking about the short story that Mazzucchelli drew like years later?
It's in the one that I have, it's just a drawing in the back of the book where there's like all the little concept sketches where he's like, oh yeah, I based it on Gregory Peck. There's like a drawing of
Right.
Adam West as Batman, as well as some
Yeah.
like drawings that he did as a kid. I think maybe on the same page.
Oh.
Talking about and he's talking about his evolution of and his growing up with the character.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the comic strip he does where it's like superheroes are real when they're drawn in ink. That one, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, he drew that years later as like
yeah.
a
I guess it was probably for like the re-release, like another
Yeah.
printing.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the one where
Okay,
they
yeah.
went in and redid the colors for it.
Mm.
That's with like the red cover.
Ugh.
I
Yeah, that's
love
the
those
one I have. I
colors.
think.
That's the one
I
I own
love those
too.
colors.
Yeah.
I know that there's like a lot of controversy about those colors, but I reference that book every single time I color a page. I think it's beautiful.
How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah.
Because I know that Brian
I-
Boland had the Killing Joke recolored as well. What are your thoughts on recoloring a work, revisiting it to recolor it?
Depends.
I'm a big fan. Every time I send my portfolio to an editor or a publisher, I recolor every single page that I've done. So I'm a big fan of it. Of course, there's not any fans of it. I get that people get like, George Lucas messing with the Star Wars trilogy, like feelings about it, but
Yeah.
I think that the original stuff still exists. So I think it's
yeah.
okay.
See, that's interesting because
Yeah, no one's like gone through and deleted everything before.
Harder to find, but yeah, that stuff still exists. So
yeah, that was the devil's advocate I was about to play. Was that for me? I've only ever read Batman Year One with the recoloring, or for that matter,
Yeah,
the
same,
Killing
same,
Joke
yeah.
as well. But to me, it's almost like a matter of, can you imagine recoloring Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's Fantastic Four today, for example?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That I'm opposed to.
that's what I mean. Like, it's like there's such a crucial element of in terms of like when something was created that I think
Yeah.
like almost recoloring a work can almost take that away from it, like that original place and time
Yeah.
when it was from. But that's just to play devil's
Yeah.
advocate. I don't actually lean that way per se.
There might be people who could pull it off and change my mind. but
yeah, I think if they're
there's
done
something
well,
about-
what's the problem with it? You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Because I think like if you took some of those like early, Lee Kirby Marvel books and recolored them, and it was just the sort of like what I would consider a pretty boring kind of like house style for the big two coloring now, it would be really disappointing. Not that every colorist for Marvel and DC are bad at all, because I feel like both of those companies are sort of maybe hiring colorists that are real artists now in the last few years more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just depends on how it's done, I think. If it's done with respect and for a purpose, not from a standpoint of like, we can do this now, so we should. This is automatically better because it's new. I think that that's a mistake.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't agree that like just like new is better automatically. I don't think that at all, because older colors and the original Batman Year One is colored beautifully, but I just
Right.
happen to like the recolored version, and it's like I said, it's one of my biggest inspirations when I color.
Mm-hmm. See, I vastly prefer the Batman Year One colors from the newsprint when it originally came out, but it's a matter of taste. For me, that as much as I love Richmond Lewis as a colorist, but
Yeah.
for me, like the rendering in there that really gets in the way, and where it's like I can't see the Mazzucchelli's rendering, and that drives me crazy.
See, and I would argue that it's subtle
Scenery-
enough. It's a good
Yeah.
marriage of the two. So yeah, that's interesting that you and it again, it's probably because you read the book
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
as it came out, and I read it
Yeah.
in 2008 or something. I picked up the book. It was like used at Hastings for $4. You know what I mean?
Definitely a different experience. Yeah, it's that scene where Gordon's sitting on the edge of the bed with a gun, and his pregnant wife is in the bed, and repainted. The modern painted version has all these flowers, and like she really went to town on it, and it's amazing. But it to me like really distracts from the image that's going on there. But I also have a nostalgia for it, I suppose. I like the simplicity of it, and it makes it look more complicated to me. But to DC's credit, like I have the absolute version of Batman Year One that has both the updated version and literally the pages reprinted from the comic, so it looks like a giant hardcover newsprint comic, complete with letters pages of all things.
I gotta get that. Oh my god.
Yeah, I can't write. It's worth the money, man. Those
it's probably like
and,
crazy
artist
expensive,
editions,
but
like the
I gotta pick it up.
Some of them are, yeah. The other problem is they also go up in price because I don't know how many they make, but
Right.
so that's one of the things that kind of tips my hand. I'm like, I'd better get that before it's $500.
That's one of my ultimate goals in life. I want to own a page from that book.
From Batman Year One.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever will, but that's my favorite comic book of all time. So that's one of my goals.
I don't know if you could purchase them is the problem. I don't know where they are, and they're probably exorbitantly expensive.
I'll just get like mad rich and tell somebody they can have whatever they want for it.
Well, there is that.
That's the first goal. Get crazy rich, and
Nate, I'm gonna cut you off right there. Nate, I'm gonna cut you off right there, buddy. You're in the wrong profession. If you want to get crazy rich, you're in the wrong spot, my friend.
What? I was promised there was so much money in this.
What about Stan Lee? He just pursued his artistic vision and became a millionaire, right? Isn't that how it works?
I thought that's what we were doing here. Yes. I quit the show, guys. I quit the show.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm rich.
Oh, well, good for you, Johnny.
I'm rich as fuck.
In love, in life, in happiness, what are you rich in, Johnny? Because I don't know if you're doing comics.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Buy another iPad, Johnny. That way you'll have one when we start the show.
Yeah, how about that?
I can't. I had to sell everything I owned to get the first iPad.
That's the most comic book creator thing I've ever heard. I had to sell everything to get what I have to use to make comics.
I really, when I was doing concept development and some background painting for that animated series I told you guys that I was a part of developing, at least the pitch for. And I had like a little mini panic attack because I realized that I was going to have to work digitally and I really didn't have a way to do it. And so I went out and bought an iPad, whatever, like 2018, 2017, whatever year that was. And I was like, oh my God, I just spent so much money on this thing to do a job. And yeah, I was like freaking out a little bit.
Well, it's expensive, but I think all of you guys can attest to the fact that even though it's an expensive purchase, it simplifies things. Like you don't have to worry about like ink smearing. You don't have to worry about having to scan work when you do it directly on the iPad.
It was worth it. Yeah, I would do it all over again.
Yeah, it's worth it, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Because it made me more competitive. I didn't like being in a position where I couldn't do the things other artists could do, where I was trying to get jobs. Because I was just never going to get those jobs, you know?
Yeah, that's a huge problem.
That's an interesting way to think about it. I never considered it that way because I'm pursuing comics as well as we all are, but I'm doing it from a traditional medium. And I never looked at it, owning an iPad in that same light of like, oh, well, if I'm going to compete, like I should have that same leg up or that same technology to that same extent. I've never really thought about it that way. But
well, here's the problem with not going digital, in my mind, is that if you work for a company that's not you, so if you get hired, say, by Marvel to do Spider-Man or whatever, they are going to ask you to do revisions, and revisions are a nightmare. They're so much easier in digital, and to me, that's one of the selling points of it.
Yeah,
As
anytime I
opposed
have to
having-
redo a panel, I draw everything traditionally, but anytime I have to like sort of massively go in and redo a panel, I do it digitally. Or if I've been asked before to like add panels to a page,
Yeah.
and I mean you could do paste ups, and I've done that before too if it's simple enough. But if it has to be like a whole new thing,
You can, but yeah.
yeah, it's so much easier to scan it in and just start drawing digitally. And I've gotten more comfortable with it now, where I can make the two look
Yeah.
like they belong together. The way I have my
Right.
brushes and the brushes that I've downloaded and bought or whatever, I've gotten things that because I never want you to look at a page and go like, okay, well this face he had to redo and that's a digital drawing, because that would be a nightmare.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, your goal with digital should make it look organic. That's my opinion. You don't want it to look
I
digital
agree. Yeah, I agree.
to be-
Yeah,
make the
yeah.
drawing easier. That's one reason why I work with a lot of chalk brush is digitally, is because I feel like it kind of keeps things looking organic, but also covers up my mistakes. Like the sharper the image, the more you're going to be able to scrutinize things and realize how off something might or might not be.
Yeah, I download like every dry brush that I come across. I work with a lot of charcoal
Yeah.
brushes,
Yeah.
things like that, just because there's so much texture that it does look, at first
Yeah.
glance, it does look real. And they're so sophisticated now with the way they make them that you can't tell that it's
Right.
like, it's not just like it used to be in the, I don't want to say the early days, because
During
like
the
I said, I've
Pulp
only been
days.
doing it for 2 or 3 years. It's like the same like pattern. If you like run the Apple Pencil across the screen, it's like the same pattern over and over and over again. And they've gotten now to where it looks like a real stroke, and it's unique every time. And that was a big deal for me. Was I didn't like digital drawing with what I was doing in Photoshop before I got the iPad for a long time, because I had a lot of watercolor brushes that I actually enjoyed, but I could use them. I would kind of make them as big as I could before they got pixelated and kind of stamp a drawing to give it texture. I didn't feel like I could actually go in and paint with them, because it just looked like the same stamp over and over and over again. I was like, that's just a dead giveaway that
You can just pick it up really quick.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I felt like I was faking it, and it was obvious that I was faking something. And I don't really feel that way about digital drawing now, where it's like,
Oh yeah.
I don't feel like I'm faking it when I do digital drawing.
Mhm.
And that was sort of a hurdle I had to get over.
Right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The first time I tried to draw something straight on the iPad, that was, I've drawn in Photoshop and stuff before, but it felt like graphic design or technical. It didn't feel like the same as pad and paper. But I remember thinking, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get used to this. It just doesn't feel right. But it happens eventually. But I still, if I'm having trouble with the drawing, I get out pad and paper and I'm like, okay, I got to quit fooling around and do this the other way.
Yeah, and one of my favorites when I do digital, I do like to at least start with a real drawing that I'll then, and I know you do this, Todd, where you'll have real pencils that you'll draw on top of on the iPad, and I love doing that, because that way I've kind of figured it out in like real media, and then I can go in and just kind of make it look pretty on the iPad.
Right. No, absolutely. But a lot of the practicing that I'm doing is old drawings that I have sitting around. And I'm like, oh, okay, that'll be good practice. Let's throw that into Procreate and see if we can digitize it successfully. They almost feel like unfinished drawings, and I'm finishing them now, maybe. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it too.
it's not. I don't feel like I would ever show anybody some of those drawings though. They feel more like layouts, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't. I only go so far, and it's just information that I would use, in a sense.
Well, I think I've become the enemy now because I used to draw like traditionally mostly and then finish up like you guys were saying. And now I just do everything on the iPad basically all the time.
Yeah, I wonder if for
yeah,
my
pretty much now. I don't really.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Well, okay, I remember in Photoshop, okay, before I drew, like that was one of the main things I wanted to do with the iPad, is before that I'd drawn with a stylus, and I'm, looking at my computer up here, but I'm drawing down here, and that was the thing that I thought, I'm never going to get used to this.
Yeah, that's
2
very
weeks later,
tough to get used to.
I didn't even think about it. It's like riding a bike. You eventually get the hang of it. And then
I found
natural, but I remember thinking I need to draw on the screen. That's what I want, and I don't want one of those giant screens that you can't lug around with you.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I feel like when I finally came to that conclusion, the iPad, the right technology came out, and it was like the good timing.
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly what I was doing. Like I got used to it, but then the jump between drawing and looking at the screen that I thought I was completely natural with to drawing on the iPad was like, it was such a big jump of like, oh shit, this is big. This is a big step up. Like,
Michael, when are you gonna get your iPad?
Yeah, I was gonna chime in soon. I was gonna chime in and go like, I'm the last man. Well, no, I was gonna make a joke about being like I Am Legend, like everyone else is turned. I'm the last of my kind. Just me and my dog in New York City. Yeah, no, it's interesting because like I know we've had conversations before about Jorge Jimenez, who's of course a superstar talent at DC currently, and he's capable of such fantastic detail within his work. And on one level, it's kind of like it's like a two-headed snake. On one level, I'm like, wow, that's incredible. He's able to do that. But then this traditional artist within me is like, well, he couldn't do that with a nib and a pen, I guarantee. You know? Which is,
Wait, is he an iPad guy? Is that why you say that?
Yeah, he's almost entirely traditional. Digital. And his work is absolutely stellar. And there's no question that he's going to be a remembered artist of this period of time. I think his influence is going to be very widespread in this up and coming generation that's going to come up after us. And he's incredible.
Do you know what medium he's using? Is it an iPad? Do you know, or is it?
I don't know what he's specifically drawing on in terms of whether it's a Cintiq, an iPad, or other third parties, but his work is phenomenal, and it does kind of come into question with like, for me, this is like the internal debate of me working with traditional right here. I love it. I love the feeling of the pen scratching the paper. I love having to like on the fly figure out like, oh crap, I messed up with the inks there. How am I going to solve this problem?
Yeah,
there's a love to it, even as it could be stressful at times. Flashback to the Flash episode where I messed up the drawing. I think that like as much as it can be like a stressful thing to do, there's like a natural feeling to me when I'm working traditional. And I don't know if that's just an excuse I tell myself to not buy an iPad and learn how to draw digitally, or if it's a philosophy I hold, or
No, I feel you. I like the the commitment of real ink, Whereas even if you make a mark that you don't love, you're kind of like, well, I did that. That's what this drawing is going to look like. Are there any artists that you guys know of or like that do both? Because I really, and I talk about him probably every episode, Sean Phillips does both. And I love everything he's ever done.
Sure.
Because I think, and I could be absolutely wrong here, but I think he did one of my favorite books of the last few years, Kill or Be Killed, with Ed Brubaker. I think he drew that completely digitally. And
I think that was digital.
I
Yeah.
love the way that book looks. Whereas he does, I think like the criminal stuff is traditional. I could be wrong about that too. But his
That's
stuff looks the same, traditional or digital, and it's amazing both ways.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think he's been completely digital for a long time, but I'd be curious to look at Criminal and see if that's true or not.
Yeah, I know.
I've
I know
seen-
he
Yeah.
still does some stuff because I follow him on Instagram, and he'll post like real inks.
Oh wow,
Yeah, nowadays, and
interesting.
yeah, and his Jacob Phillips, his son, is also an
Oh.
artist now who actually colors him on Criminal now. And I want to say he's, at least for his comics work, mostly, if not all, traditional. And you can tell that he learned.
Huh.
He learned from his dad, but it's also, you know, it's kind of like a Romita family thing where it's like you can tell that you know, the son learned from the father, but it's also pretty different and exciting.
Right. I know John Romita Jr. actually hid his art from his dad for a long time because he didn't want to seem like he was trying to ride the coattails. And
Oh, really?
I guess he kind of took his dad by surprise. He must have picked his brain though, because you know they're both such great draftsmen.
Surely, yeah.
But yeah, I was kind of surprised. I was listening to an interview with John, with them talking to each other, and he was like, "Yeah, I didn't want you to know that I was." I think in some ways he was like, I was afraid my dad would talk me out of it. Be like, "Why the fuck would you want to be a comic book artist?" And he was like, "No, this is what I want to do." But I think he got a lot of shit for it too. I think John Romita Jr. got angry at one point, recalling somebody at Marvel, and this was in like the 80s, was like, "You wouldn't have a job if your last name wasn't Romita." And like to that day, he was like, "If I see that guy, I will attack him."
Well, yeah, I
And was
mean,
like,
I could see
that's just
that
so
if he
wrong.
wasn't also
wrong
amazing.
thing to say.
If he wasn't
Oh,
also
yeah.
just phenomenal, I could see that.
Yeah,
But
Yeah, John
And I
Romita,
get
especially in
that.
his prime, like during those Daredevil days, was just like an absolute
Yeah.
talent. Like, how could you argue whether he's anybody's son or not?
I know.
He's a phenomenal
Oh, yeah.
artist,
No.
yeah, I can
He's
see if
his
he
own thing.
sucks. Yeah, but
definitely.
and I don't know. And I get he's not everyone's cup of tea. Some people really do think he's a terrible artist. I don't understand it
Yeah.
at all.
I don't either.
I don't get it. And some people really do think like if his name wasn't Romita that he wouldn't work. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that.
He's an
Yeah,
acquired
right.
taste, I
I
think,
find
though.
it weird that, like, he's an acquired taste, but you can't say he can't draw.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Mike
can't say he's
Mignola's an
bad.
acquired taste. Jack Kirby's an
Yeah.
acquired taste.
Yeah. I mean, me with Tim Sale. I told you guys right at the beginning I didn't like Tim Sale. I now do. But
And
I
we
never
said
said he
you were
couldn't
wrong.
draw.
Yeah.
I never said he couldn't draw. I said I can see he can draw.
Do you guys think there are any working artists who are very clearly inspired by Pulp? And if not, I can I can change the question to be a little more easy to pick. Are there any artists who you wish would do a Pulp type story?
That's a good
I
question.
would say George Fornes. I don't know how to pronounce
Jorge
it.
Fornes?
Oh yeah.
He's pretty pulpy. I mean, he started out, I guess. I mean, when I first saw his work, it was when he was doing some Batman stuff. And I was just like, okay, he's doing...
Jr.
He's doing Mazzucchelli.
Yeah, modern
Which, like,
Mazzucchelli.
There's like some artists where like their influences are so clear, but like you're like, well, the person you've picked to influence you is so good that I'm just happy to see
Right.
more Mazzucchelli kind of work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
like you can see
Yeah.
what he's doing, but you're like,
You
yeah,
can-
no, keep doing that. I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, I'll like every post that you do, man.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was surprised, and I don't know why, but when I saw that he was like actually doing Batman with Tom King, I was like, huh. Because he was
Yeah.
just a guy that I followed on Instagram that did really cool Batman drawings, and I was like, well, that's neat. Maybe if I
Yeah,
do enough
yeah.
drawings
Yeah, there's hope
on
for all of us.
Instagram.
Yeah.
That isn't how he got discovered, is it?
I don't know. In my mind, I don't know anything about this guy. In my mind, it is. And I mean, why
Okay.
not? That's the hope for me, at least, with
I
Instagram.
think that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
don't
should
know.
be
I don't
fun
know if he had
Instagram
connections, if he
artists.
knew anybody, if he sent anything to anybody. I don't know. So I shouldn't say, but
Right,
yeah,
right.
sort of the wish dream. Every time I hit submit on that make a post on Instagram, I'm like, all right, Jim Lee's gonna see this. They're gonna hire
Yeah.
me, and I'm gonna be drawing Action Comics in 2
This
months.
is gonna be the
It's
moment.
This
always
is
in the
it.
back of your head,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll do a
absolutely.
killer Superman drawing or something, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be doing Superman real soon, guys.
I think that's always
Yeah.
You should notice.
yeah, I think that's honestly the only way you can operate in terms of when you post things online, because of course the performance of like likes definitely affects your mental state, whether you want to admit it or not. Like when you see like
Absolutely.
you're like damn
Yeah.
it, I got
That's
20 likes on a
true.
post. Like why didn't it get 100 like the other one did? Like
Oh,
this was
totally.
this is my most recent work. This is the one that should be getting me accolades. This is the
Yeah.
one that should be getting me the jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to
And it's always
separate
something that you're really, really proud of that doesn't get any likes.
exactly. Yeah, that's my
Yeah,
point.
You're like,
It's
this is the best thing I think I've ever drawn, and straight up 30
Yeah.
people are like, hey, that's good job, and you're like, really?
Yeah, that's almost the way you have to operate, though, is like keeping the optimism of I'm learning, I'm still getting better. And then with each drawing, you're like, oh, this one's a little bit better than the last one. Oh, this one's a little bit better than the last one. And
Well,
as you keep progressing.
And just to not take likes too seriously as it is, because it doesn't mean the drawing's bad. I've
Definitely.
had drawings I think are terrible, have gotten tons of likes, and I'm like, really? And then other stuff where I'm like, so 4 people noticed that, huh? But
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna let this. It's just the internet. Let's not think about it too hard.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I always like at the end of the year, Instagram will do like or you can do like your top 9 like
Right.
Instagram posts. And one year I did it. It might have been the first year that it was like a thing. And I was like, ooh, what were my top 9 Instagram? And my top by a country mile was just a drawing or it was a photo of one of the pages from Batman Year One that I really like. And I posted, I was like, damn, Mazzucchelli's really good. And like 400, 500 people agreed. And it was my most liked post for that year by, 400 likes or something. And I was like,
Oh,
and I
man.
posted the top 9 and I was like, glad to see my best post this year was a drawing that I did not do. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's great.
That's funny.
Oh man,
Wow.
that sucks.
Well, I'll tell you, they love Batman. Hands down, the most likes I get are Batman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah, probably me too.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's kind of wildly inconsistent, but
Although I think the post that I have, just to keep talking about Instagram clout, the most liked post I have this year probably, I don't know, probably was a Crow like ink sketch that I did towards the
Oh, wow.
beginning of summer maybe, and it just really popped off. It's been kind of a weird Instagram year. It only got like 275 or 300 likes, but yeah, that's been my best one this year. And I was kind of
It's pretty
surprised,
weird.
not that people don't like the Crow, but I was surprised that was the best one. I liked the drawing. I didn't think it was spectacular.
Yeah, the
but
Crow is pretty niche, isn't it?
yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I was like, there's definitely an audience for the Crow,
No.
but
Yeah.
for everything that I post, for that to be like the one that popped off, I was kind of surprised. Maybe wrongfully
Yeah.
so. I probably shouldn't have been surprised by that.
We'll hop around then. Is anybody interested in going first? Well, Johnny, you said yours was actually done for your spirit piece, so I guess we'll.
I'm done,
start
so I
with
can
you.
go. Yeah, I can go. So yeah, I've finished the shadow piece. I think maybe I'll go away and look at it again and find some things I hate about it. But
Oh man,
For
that's
now.
cool.
yeah, so like a lot of it is just the text that I had a lot of fun with. But yeah,
Wow.
I've got like a little bit of like red, like half tone for some of it,
That's awesome.
and then like a real
How
thick.
did you do the text? Did you draw it, or did you import it, or?
It's a funny story. I actually, for that text, I opened a new layer and hand drew all of it. and then like distorted it and made it
What?
like, you know, put it
Wow.
on that plane. You know, like
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
You hand
I
drew
like
that?
dragged it so that it fit that
Yeah,
plane.
that's so cool.
Well, I hand drew it like straight. I hand drew it on
Yeah.
a grid, and then I
God
fitted
damn
it
it,
to that
Johnny.
plane. And then
Yeah, I think
got
you're
to-
lettering my next book. Actually, I don't know that you knew
Yeah.
that, but you're gonna letter. You're gonna letter my next book.
I'll happily take that.
I
I
will
then
pay
got to
you
like the
in
nose.
gratitude.
Yeah,
Is
thanks,
that
man.
would you call that Eisner influenced, or was it unconscious as far as Eisner goes?
That was unconscious. Well, the lettering.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was unconscious. I mean, it was.
I think
I guess it was a mix-up. I swear I've seen a few like pieces by the Shadow where he does the Eisner thing, where like the Shadow or the Shadow
totally.
nose is like written in the background.
Yeah.
But it is. I
Yeah.
guess maybe it's the spirit more prominently. But I was thinking, like, I know that with a lot of these pulp characters, the title is like in there, like implemented in the image in a cool way. So I knew I wanted to do that. But funnily enough,
Right.
I hand drew the words the Shadow, and then got to nose, started hand drawing it, and then was like, oh wait, fuck, you can insert text. I've done that a million times. Why did I not do
Yeah.
it before? So I just did it for nose, and I was like, yeah, that was way easier. Why didn't I do that in the first place?
Yeah. That's awesome.
But yeah, it was. I knew before I started that the text was the main thing I wanted in there, which is not my norm, but felt right for the character.
I love inserting stuff like that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
She made it part of those buildings and everything. Crazy.
Yeah, it was
That's
really
awesome.
fun.
I bet.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, absolutely stellar. To be expected from you, of course.
Yeah,
but
man.
yeah,
Thanks, man.
the Shadow is just a like absolute perfect choice for your art style. Just perfect.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
my first pick.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Shadow knows, or whatever the radio show sounded like.
Yeah, something like that. I imagine that's what I have in my head.
Lamont, whatever his name is.
Yeah, something Lamont,
Cranston.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel bad drawing
Lamont
the Shadow
Cranston.
and knowing so little about him. Yeah, that's it.
It's-
Lamont Cranston. You're right, Todd.
Yeah.
Shadow's rad.
No, that's stellar,
Shadow's
man.
Dark
Cheers,
motherfucker,
Yeah, I just like that hook nose poking over the mask.
Yeah.
That's
It's
what I
like my
look like
favorite
every
thing
time I
about
go
him.
out in public right now.
You
Unintentional
gotta put it
cosplay.
over your nose, Mike.
If you knew how big my nose was in real life, you would understand. We'll hop around real quick. Todd, I am dying to see how your
Yeah.
Rocketeer is turning out, my
Yeah,
friend.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going way slower than usual. I got hung up on the helmet, and
Oh, yeah, we can
you
see it
guys
now.
It looks like a slee stack
Ooh.
from Land of the Lost, but it wasn't quite turning out right. And I was like, "What am I doing wrong here?" But I'm just kind of taking my time with it and playing around. I don't know. It's fun, but I think usually I'm kind of speedy in these, but I think I'm gonna have a ways to go when this is all finished. But we'll see. So yeah, fun to do though. That helmet is complicated.
Yeah, actually, I think you're doing extremely well with that helmet because I mean, it's a very flat Boba Fett
yeah.
type shape, but you have to get it right. Like the silhouette
Yeah.
and the features are very important. I think you nailed them actually.
One of those
I don't know
things.
if you can see it, but I put some Kirby lines in there.
Ooh, yeah.
That works.
I was not sure if that was a good idea or not, but I was like, oh, it's so hard not to put Kirby squiggles and things sometimes.
Yeah, no, that looks great.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
that
That's
works for
one of
the
those
texture
things,
for
like,
sure.
we've talked about this with Mike. You were drawing Darth Vader, where it's got to be exactly right, or it's almost unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the Rocketeer.
If it's a little off, it doesn't look right.
Yeah, it's gotta be just exactly right, and it's so weird that you can't.
Yeah.
One of those things you
Like
can't
Beta
really
Ray Bill.
play with. Yeah, like Beta Ray Bill.
You don't want to be one of those endless rabble that draws them wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the nightmare.
You want to be in that short list that Walt Simonson's like, Nate Wells. He really knows how to draw a pay-to-play bill.
If Walt Simonson ever said my name, I would, I don't know. I'd die.
Yeah.
That'd be
Well,
great.
Get some life insurance because you never know, man.
That would be. I'm just gonna start drawing Beta Ray Bill every
I don't know
day.
what that means actually, but
Yeah, that sounded like a threat, actually.
Y'all better get some life insurance.
my intention that came out wrong. I was trying to
I quite
compliment
like
you,
it.
but somehow it came across as, well, you're gonna die, boy.
It's a pretty pulp threat, I think. Pretty on brand.
Yeah.
It'd be a shame if something were to happen to you. World's a scary
You mess
place.
around with that broad, you better get some life insurance, boy.
Dude, the
Actually,
broads, you know.
Speaking of threats, you want to hear some shadow quotes?
Oh,
Listen to
yes, absolutely.
this. Okay. This
Yes,
is the
please.
shadow, man. Let's see. Your hand cannot move to the door handle without a catch. A movement held back in consideration of considerations. You've neglected an account of your life.
Oh my
Whoa.
god.
No corner can be backed into without my breath on your neck. Batman doesn't talk, but the shadow is very verbose. He lets them know, I know the greater game. I know the shadow knows. You know, he like enslaves people to work for him. He's like, you work for me now, and you don't get a choice. I don't know. I love the shadow, man. But
Man,
it's
I
like,
thought I wasn't gonna sleep because of the Crimson
barely a
Clown,
good guy.
but
Ha.
the shadow is now giving. I don't know who I'm gonna
I've
expect to come out of my
two
closet
teamed up
tonight.
at some point.
God,
I
that's
want those two to team up. Isn't that crazy though?
God, that's some absolutely terrifying threats. I almost need
Yeah.
to wash
Yeah.
my palate with some good old Western with Nate's Masked
I
Rider.
will ensure you devour yourself. Good God. Unbelievable.
Nate, I'm actually spotlighted on your piece right now. You're getting a
Okay.
lot of headway with your inking right now.
Yeah, I decided I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I gotta just like kill this horse real quick, before I get into the guy here. I looked up his name. Wayne Morgan is his name. I know a lot about the character that I'm drawing, guys. I know so much about him. I'm a huge fan. No, like I said, I really just picked him because of my college that I went to, and he's cool. I think he's cool with his mask and his little gun. But yeah, I did what I thought I was going to do with this drawing. I'm going to try and add as much black to this horse as I can, although I am making sort of smaller brushstrokes than I had anticipated, doing a little bit more. I even thought about breaking out. This is a Winsor Newton number 3. I thought about breaking out a number 2 to do it, because I was actually a lot more confident in the pencil drawing than I thought I was going to be. And a lot of times it's sort of a cheat that I'll do is when I'm not super confident in like anatomy or just a drawing in general, I'll make my marks really big to kind of hide as much as I can. And this one I actually have not been having, with the horse of all things, as much a problem as I thought I would. Although I am sort of like making the marks a little more dynamic than I might. We talked about in the Flash episode that I'm not a particular fan of speed lines, not the way they look, but just I think they're really hard. And I'm almost doing that kind of thing with the horse's, the shading on the horse. But I was a little nervous about it. I thought it could get pretty muddy, and I haven't drawn the actual Masked Rider yet. So we'll see how it turns out in part 2. But yeah, I'm enjoying the drawing. I'm really looking forward to finishing it. I don't know how I'm gonna tackle the sort of background or the ground that the horse is traveling on here. I have 2 drawings. I don't even know if you guys can see them. They're in blue line, so maybe not. I have sort of like an actual like trail drawn out going this way for sort of like if I want to draw him like in a real space.
Yeah.
But then I also just have kind of some tall grass drawn that kind of like I'll just draw under the horse here. That's still, I guess, a real kind of space that I've created, but it's much more flat graphic space. Make the drawing a little bit more of like a graphic drawing rather than like this could be a panel from a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to tackle it yet, but I figure I'll get the horse done. I'll draw the masked rider on top, and then I'll just kind of pick one and go with it.
Yeah, man, it looks absolutely stellar. I'm very excited.
Thank you.
I can see your line work right now, and I'm very excited to see you get into the inking of the masked rider in the second part here. But anyways, guys, I'll hop into mine real quick just before we hop off for this part one. I mostly got done line work on Zorro done. I have a little bit more to do in terms of the layout here. The shadow under Tornado. I have to I know what I'm doing, but I need to finish the line work on this cowboy, these palm trees in the background, as well as this Pueblo style architecture. But yeah, I'm moving at a comfortable pace compared to Johnny, who is zipping through like a crazy man on his work. But yeah,
I don't even want to look at what he's drawing.
Yeah, I'm absolutely frightened. I'm like, okay, we got to jump into part 2 real quick before Johnny gets done and goes, well, I got nothing to draw, guys. I guess I'll call it a night.
Yeah, I mean, the clown started. I'm on the clown.
I can see. Well, hey, guys,
But
I'll close this out right there then real quick. Make sure you guys check out our social media in the links below. You can find our Instagrams there. Please make sure you follow and back all of our artistic endeavors. I know we have several that we're all very passionate about. Please tune in to part 2. This has only been part 1 of this awesome Pulp episode of Ink Drink Think, episode 7. Anyways, guys, this has been Michael Pickard, joined by my co-hosts, Johnny Wise, Nate Wells, and Todd Blackwood. Please tune in for part 2 in a couple of days. Thanks, guys.
See ya.